This meeting is being recorded.
Good afternoon, everybody. Give it a minute or two. I see one or two more people sneaking in the waiting room here. Kyle. Let's keep that open. That looks like everybody for now. Let me just double check. Ooh, perfect. Cool. So a smaller crowd to start off the day, but we got everybody in, and we'll just keep that waiting room open there in the background. Hey, welcome, guys. Good afternoon. Back to another, weekly DaaS Sales Workshop. Every Tuesday, 3 p.m. These are the ones per week that I host. And as many of you guys may know, especially repeat, attendees, my area of expertise is all kind of within the front end of the business, the marketing, the messaging, the sales, overcoming objection, pitching, pricing. And today we're going to go into some more sales strategy, philosophy, and best practices that I'm seeing make a difference between C&B player, reps and closers, and A players. And I just want to go through some of the strategies and some easy things that we can implement, or make subtle tweaks, or ways to use some of the strategies and some of the philosophies I'm going to go over into our sales process, our sales calls. Again, my main objective and my main goal with these workshops is hopefully it's more than one thing, but at minimum, there could be one thing you guys can take away and go implement into your messaging or your sales calls or your discovery or whatever aspect that we're covering, that we can, make some tweaks. So Eduardo, I'll call on you real quick, and I'm going to also be saving time at the end for a Q&A as well. But go ahead, Eduardo, real quick. What do you have?
Yeah, thank you. I'm new here, and I just want to ask you, Raymond, what can I expect from these exact calls that you ran? If you can just tell me roughly why are they different than the other ones? Why should I come here? What's going to be different than the other ones? That's all I need to know for now. Otherwise, I will bombard you with questions. So
Sure. No, 100%.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was kind of just going into. A majority of the workshops, office hours are all geared around tech support, audience building, that kind of stuff. Our media buying workshops, generally run by our media buyer, Jeremy Garcia, are everything to do with, taking the data and embedding into Google ads, meta ads, etc. Adam's weekly workshops are usually more about platform upgrades, workshops with client results. Sometimes there'll be, workshop formats with a very specific, hey, this is how to generate a newsletter campaign. Or so Adams are usually much more specific to specific topic or objective. My weekly workshops every Tuesday are all geared around the sales side of things. So how are mine different? No other workshops will you get coaching or lessons on high-level sales strategies, how to overcome objections, how to pitch the data, and everything I teach and all the Q&A is basically geared around that primarily.
Thank you. And is there any documents you have with questions and answers that have been asked before here in these workshops, or like a notes page, something like that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, I don't think I have any documents around the Q&A section or the main questions, because they differ so much from week to week, depending on really two main things. Number one, who and how many people are on the workshop, and number two, what my main topic or what my main lesson is that week. So it's hard to say. Now, the one thing I am going to get into that I do every single week, more specific to guys like you, Eduardo, or anyone else that this is my first workshop that they're attending, something I give away to start each week, and the best kind of overall sales resources that I put together for you guys. I'm just going to share my screen here quickly. And then I'm going to go drop this link right now. Hold on, guys. Let me just go drop this right now in the main Zoom chat so everybody can have this document. And let me explain really quickly what this is. Oops, wrong link. Give me 1 second. Let me just copy and share and copy this one more time. I'll drop the link in there, and then I'll go over what's included here on this document. Hold on 1 minute. Sorry, guys. Getting bombarded with pop-ups here now. There's somebody else in the waiting room. Give me 1 second. Participants. That's weird. Says I have somebody in the waiting room, and I go look participants that I don't. Okay, now that document is there in the chat. Sorry, I see what the pop-up was stalling me. And basically, guys, again, quite a few of you, I see your faces. You have this document. I've been over this 100 times. I go over this every week. But for guys like Eduardo or anybody new or that hasn't either had a one-on-one call with me or attended my workshops, these 8 resources on this document are the best seller resources to build out your full DaaS agency process. So really quickly, number 1 is the Google Doc of me showing you the exact sales process I recommend, the game plan, the timeline, the build out, the expectations, et cetera, et cetera. So guys, for a little more context here, my background, I have closed over 10 million in high ticket deals on Zoom in the last few years. I built our Audience Lab sales team from scratch and was the initial Audience Lab sales rep. And I run another company called the Sales Lab where I train and place closers. And I also get hired by more established companies to build out sales teams. Matter of fact, I just signed 2 of those client build out customers in the last week or 2, and I've been putting a lot of time into that. I say all that to tell you guys I have a pretty good finger on the pulse of what's working in the high ticket sales space, especially when building out sales teams and processes. So again, number 1 document going over all that. Number 2 is a tutorial where I go in more depth in that document on anything I might have kept in a short definition that I thought you guys would like me to elaborate or speak on a little further. Number 3, we always love to share what we're doing. Guys, we're a very transparent company. I'm always happy to share. I'm very unfiltered. I am a co-owner here at Audience Lab, but this document is showing you the current ads we're running, the emails that we're sending, the LinkedIn messaging, the creative, the copy, everything that we're putting together to land, data clients day in and day out. So I share that with you guys. Matter of fact, it's on my agenda before the end of the week to go and update some of our newer ad campaigns. Those ones I put in a few months ago, some are still running, some may not be. So I'm just going to update it with all current ads for you guys probably before the end of the week. But you can still access and see all the ad campaigns that we put in there. Number 4 and 5 on my screen, guys, are the 2 sales scripts that I've already built out for you that I recommend you use in the sales process in, document number 1. So number 4 would be for your triage call. Number 5 would be for your actual sales call or demo call. Number 6 on this screen, guys, is a copy of our Canva pitch deck that we give to you. So nothing here is branded to Audience Lab. You go, click on the link, download your own copy, swap out the first slide or 2 with your own branding, and we put together a pitch deck to show you how to go pitch in-market audiences, super pixel, half dozen or a dozen different case studies in different niche industries. Number 7, I go into a little more depth in a quick 15 or 20-minute tutorial on the pixel pricing. And within that particular tutorial, down in the description is the link to our pixel calculator. So if you're on with a potential client or prospect and they tell you how many website visitors they get, the average order value of their purchase or their product or service, and I would say the percentage their website's currently converting at, we can plug those numbers right in the pixel calculator and get a pretty good guesstimate of how much revenue they're leaving on the table by not utilizing our identity resolution solution or tool. And then number 8 is just a Google Doc with about 15 or 20 of my call recordings. So you can hear my verbiage, terminology, cadence, how I relate to clients on calls and how I move the conversation forward. A few guys asked for that about 3 or 4 months ago. So that was the most recent thing I've added to this document. So that's a good little overview and everything you should need to dial in your sales process or get more familiar with, again, how to pitch, how to price, all that stuff is covered within here. So that's the first thing I wanted to share, guys. Secondly, something I like to do on a weekly basis, and I usually do regularly, and just speaking of, I was talking about there, was showing you what we do in terms of like our ads, our copy, our creative. I'm very transparent with what we do as a team. So just to show you guys, I'll show you, I like to give you guys updates. So just to show you guys, and this is the last end of day report I see within my booking, my call booking channel. Sorry, Zoom put my face right in front of that, or the toolbar. But you can see on June 9th specifically, we booked only 7 via ads. Pretty low for us on $1,300 ad spend, almost 14. You can see the cost per appointment comes to almost $200. We like to be somewhere between the 80 and 120 mark is our kind of core KPI. Normally when we see it rise, it's for one of 2 reasons, but a lot of times that's when we're going to go back and look at swapping creative. Now, the good thing that offsets that is you'll see we booked another 7 via our workshop nurture reactivation sequence, which is done primarily through email to our list and, past calls that did not close, right? Past sales calls and people that had clicked on the ads in the past. So that would really offset this app cost to about in half, but we only like to track, and in this particular automation, in this particular workflow, we only like to track what it's costing us per ad spend. But you can see I always tell you guys, on average, we normally like to book, and our KPI is about 15 to 20 appointments per day. We're one short there. We booked 14 per day. And again, I showed you guys last week, I think we were hitting a lot higher numbers. But again, that's for our media buying team to go back and revamp ads, angles, hooks, maybe drop one of our creative and put more spend behind one. So we're always attributing, we're currently, I mean, we're usually, I can't say currently, but we're typically running somewhere about 7 to 9 different ad sets or different creatives. So we're always going back and doing what I always teach in this. We're always optimizing and scaling the winning campaigns, and then we shelf the losing ones, whichever ones are below KPI, and we put them back into the lab for testing to see if they just need a subtle tweak. They're an actual loser and they're not going to work, or kind of diagnose what went wrong. So again, showing you kind of what we're getting on a daily basis. We spend about $1,400 per ads to book about 15 calls per day. And then, when it comes to like our closed deals and cash collected, again, very transparent. Now, the numbers within this channel, as I always tell you guys, are all just new deals just from ads or new calls booked in the email. So they have nothing to do with the existing revenue already on our platform or any existing clients, customers, MRR, all just new revenue. So you can see through 9 days this month, at month to date, our sales team has generated about 32,000 in new revenue and about 26,000 in new MRR. Some of you guys might ask, what's the difference between, cash collected total and MRR? MRR just means that revenue is already on the books for next month and the following month. Sometimes that might not be everything. Some people just buy one-off custom audiences. Sometimes there's an activation fee associated with enrollment into a new product or a new program that would go into the cash collected and not the MRR. So those are a couple of the subtle differences. But again, you see through 9 days, about 32,000 generated. So we can kind of project that we'll hit roughly 95K in total cash collected this month. We're about a third of the way through the month. The 10th, a little over 30,000. So we can kind of get the monthly projections from there, which would be at or a little above KPI. So that would be excellent in both of these categories, both the MRR added and the cash collected added month to date are both just a little above KPI and where we would like it to be right now. So again, I always like to just show you guys in real time the most recent day or week or month's numbers and what we're seeing on a kind of regular basis. Now, what I want to cover today, and again, as I go, guys, if you have any questions, comments, anything you want me to add, elaborate on, or anything you want to ask, just type it in the chat. And then when I get toward the end of the lesson, I'm going to give an open Q&A where you can unmute and I can answer the questions already in the chat, or I'll just call on you and have you unmute and ask. But what I wanted to cover and what I kind of put together for this week's lesson, a lot of you guys may know, and again, I know some of you guys are here for the first time. I'm co-owner of Audience Lab. I'm also co-owner of PDocs, our initial company, which some of my lessons and trainings are surrounding. Really quickly, PDocs, for anyone that doesn't know, stands for pains, desires, obstacles, common beliefs, and steroids, also known as attention grabbers in the market. And PDocs is an overall communication and outreach system comprised of a few different components. So PDocs was our first company. Audience Lab and Sales Lab both launched right around the same time. I've told this story before, and I'll sum it up really, really quickly. But what kind of has led us from one company into, launching other companies? And now, as you guys may know, and if not, again, very transparent, Audience Lab is our largest company in terms of revenue, the amount of current clients. It's by far our largest company. But the way that those two both started is PDocs, the first year we launched in 2021, we launched with just 2 products. We had a $97 or $147, $150 7-day challenge, and we had a 6K back-end high-ticket flagship program. First year we launched PDocs, we did 1.6 million cash collected and 2.1 or 2.3 invoice. I'd have to look back at the numbers, but I know it was 1.6 million cash collected. What we did is we took about our 20 or 30 best clients that came through PDocs. At the time, we were working with business owners, say doing 8 to 15K a month, and we would help them get to 50 to 75K a month within 90 days. What we started to realize is once our clients got to that point, now, number one, somebody doing 8 to 15K a month, as opposed to 50 or 75K, different sophistication level by that time. So by the time they've come through our program, they're more established and more sophisticated in the market. What does that equate to? That also leads to different problems and different challenges in their business than they had at, 8 to 15K, right? So what did we realize? We took our 20 best clients that got from 10K to 50K. Let's just take that number, something better, but whatever. And then we kind of pulled them and said, hey, now that you're 50K a month, what's the next things you're focusing on? And what are you kind of investing in the business now? What were they doing at that point? They were starting to add sales reps and build out sales teams. And they were starting to do a lot more with paid advertising. Not to say PDocs didn't help them with that, and some clients were doing it. But PDocs, generally speaking, was to grow your business up to 50K a month organic trainings. So once we got people up to 50K months through email, through LinkedIn and Facebook outreach, and all the kind of organic methods, at that point, a lot of them wanted to go into what we do internally. And I always talk about we use 4 marketing channels, but they wanted to go into a hybrid and a combination of using organic as well as paid ads. And they wanted it to filter more and more toward paid because the big difference between the two is, as we all know, organic, we need to invest time, paid, we need to invest money. Early in your business, when you're under 10K, it's probably easier and more logical to invest time and grow organically. Once you hit a certain level and you have a certain revenue threshold, it actually makes more sense to leverage that time back and get a predictable paid channel of marketing going. So you're kind of aware that, hey, I can put in $198 and I know I get a booked call. Do I like the numbers a little better than that? Yes, but I'm just taking the exact example I just shared with you guys. At least you have a predictable method, and if you put in X, you should see Y come out the back end, and you can start to build a bit more scalable, predictable method that way. So again, I always like a hybrid. I never like to just rely on one or the other. But early on, I didn't personally use paid ads till I was well above 10K months. I did organic till I got to about 40K months, and that's when I started to embed paid ads personally. But again, back to kind of what I was talking about. So our clients told us they were going a lot more into paid advertising and building sales teams. Well, what did myself and one of my business partners, there's 3 business partners and co-owners within Audience Lab. There's myself, there's Adam, and there's Jesse Gibson, who you guys don't see much. He's kind of in the background. He's our CFO, handling all our data contracts and payroll and taxes and all the crap I don't want to deal with, to be totally honest. But Jesse is, damn, it even pains me to say, still, Jesse's a better closer than I, and he and I together have closed a combined 30 million in high ticket deals. Once our clients told us they were starting to go more towards sales training and building sales teams, it was kind of a very easy transition into, hey, let's start giving clients reps, let's start giving training, let's start building sales teams and doing all the processes. So what I'm kind of saying here is we take our most successful clients, we see what they're focusing on next, we ask them where the problems or where the struggles or where they're going to invest in their business, and then we build out products and services that can deliver, because we know if our 20 or 30 best clients that we pulled in our successful PDocs program are both going into advertising and building sales teams, we also know that anybody else that comes through, and there's lots of other people similar to those guys out in the marketplace that are 5K plus a month investing into sales teams and paid ads. So we just took that and we built that. We took, for any of you guys that don't know, that 1.6 million cash collected in our first year. Us 3 business owners made a very conscious decision to take $1 million of that and go reinvest it into the bare bones that you now know as Audience Lab today. It took us 8 months and $1 million before we ever got a penny back from that investment. Built out the coding, the software, the developers. Some of you guys know when we first launched, we were just Ads Lab because we didn't even have the audience builder. That came once we built out our initial Ads Lab platform, which initially we just sold identity resolution and super pixels till we got up to a certain time and we reinvested into the audience builder. And that's what we're always doing, even recently. Some of you guys who just enrolled in the last few weeks don't notice the difference, but we just upgraded our platform from a version 2 user interface to a version 3 Audience Lab. That was a pretty sizable investment. And it's always in hopes of having a top product and a top software. And always in our minds, we are very, very obsessed with our competition and staying ahead of them and being the top data provider in the space. You don't do that without some sacrifice and some investments back into yourself and your company. So that kind of went on a tangent a little more than I wanted, but give you guys some context about who we are, why we have these 3 businesses, how they developed. I think that's kind of important. So within my Sales Lab brand, which really mixes, everything I do in Sales Lab kind of goes back into that seller document resource, although that one is just applicable or much more applicable to a data agency. It's the same processes and the same systems I use in up to 20 different companies that I've now built sales teams for. High-level sales, whether it's an individual or whether it's managing a team, they always come down to the same categories. They come down to talent, number one, right? I'm not going to put these in chronological order, but talent, They come down to scripts and frameworks. They come down to tracking metrics and accountability. They come down to leadership and mentorship, meaning doing call offs, doing role plays, doing things that help your closers level up. But everything always comes back to metrics, talent, reps, tracking, accountability, and leadership within sales. So the most applicable high-level sales philosophies, strategies, and best practices that I want to go over today, you're going to kind of see them on my screen. I'm going to go into more depth. Obviously, I'm going to scroll down and get to the ones you can't see yet. But number one, and this is probably the core value within Sales Lab, I have a document that just says Sales Lab, the product, and I just dumped a lot of research and thoughts into that when we first launched the company. And the number one motto is telling isn't selling. What does that mean? In short, whatever you want to say out of your mouth, and ironically, when I audit sales reps calls, I still hear this so often. They want to shout to the prospect, you need my services to get said results, something like that. Whenever you want to say that on a sales call, all you're doing is building up more sales friction and resistance and pushing the prospect away. What can you do? Get it to come out of their mouth. Ask them the question so they say, yeah, Ray, if I had X service or X solution, I could achieve X result. So asking them the question to get them to say what you want to scream is what's going to be important. Why? Number one, as a sales rep, a business owner, whatever, on that call, from the prospect's perspective, you're kind of the enemy in a sense. They're not going to believe everything that comes out of your mouth because you're a salesman. You're probably going to pitch them a high ticket service at the end of the call or offer, and you have a bias on the outcome of the call. You have an objective you want to accomplish. But tell me, would a prospect or would an individual believe what comes out of their mouth more so than what comes out of your mouth as a sales rep? I think we all know the answer to that is yes. So anything I can get them to say, and that's what I'm really good at, and that's kind of goes back to the sales scripts and the frameworks you're going to be seeing that I've laid out for you guys. It's the ability to ask questions to get them to say, yes, this is my number one challenge, and lock them down to one thing. Yes, if I had X solution to said challenge, I could achieve X result, more conversions, more sales, more revenue, whatever that is in this particular, objective or instance that you're dealing with. So, and what I use, and I should have put in here, that's actually going to be number 5 that I didn't type, but using tie downs and temp checks. Tie downs, meaning tying them down and holding them accountable to the words they gave you on the call. Meaning, hey, Bob, would you say the biggest problem right now is your rising cost per lead and cost per acquisition? Yes, Ray, it is. Okay, I got it to come out of his mouth there. Hey, if you had a solution to this and I could give you in-market targeting audiences that almost overnight could lower your cost per lead and acquisition without having to go swap out and create new creative constantly, would that, do you think that would lead to more profitability in your ads? Well, hell yeah, Ray. If we had more targeted audiences and our cost per lead and acquisition were dropping, or not consistently rising, yeah, our ads would definitely be more profitable. Cool. Is it okay, man, if I show you a solution and how our ad tech can very quickly, almost overnight, help drop that cost per lead and acquisition and ultimately give you more profitability in your ads, Joe? Yeah, Ray, I'd be happy to see. Okay, great. Then we walk them through the solution, and then I get to a temp check after I show the solution. Hey, Joe, scale of say 1 to 10. 1, Ray, you're ugly. Let's hang up now. 10, I need this embedded in my business yesterday. Where do you feel like this falls on that end of the spectrum? And how do you feel about that? And then I check them. I always like to say, guys, if I get an 8 or higher, 8, 9, or 10 right off the bat, I go into the assumptive pitch. I would just assume the close right there. If I get lower than an 8, 7, 6, then I want to get him talking a little about it and get him up to closer to that 8 or 9 or 10. So what does that look like? Hey, Ray, I'm about a 7 out of 10. All right, Joe. So that really tells me 2 things. Number one, you see a bit of value in what I've just laid out for you, and you have a pretty good understanding of how that solution works. Is that fair to say, Bob? Joe, whatever the name was I'm using, doesn't matter. Yeah, Ray, that's fair to say. Okay, so let me ask you, why are you a 7 and not 5? What do you like about the solution? Well, what I like, Ray, is I've never really seen anything like this, and I totally see how it would work in my business. Okay, so let me ask you, what's missing from here, or what didn't I cover that would have had you closer to an 8, 9, or a 10 that I might be didn't cover? Well, Ray, I wouldn't say it's anything you didn't cover per se, but I'm just a little skeptical of how this works. This is all brand new to me. I didn't even know there was big data providers like you, and I definitely didn't know there was the capabilities to do what you're talking about here in terms of enhanced targeting, lower my costs, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess I'm a little more skeptical. Okay, I totally get where you're coming from, Joe. That all being said, if I can show you a repeatable process where this is working for industry, client after client, would that overcome a little of that apprehension and skepticism? And if I showed you that, where would you be maybe on that scale of the spectrum I talked about 1 through 10? Well, yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. If you could show me some repeatable processes and everything you demoed today, although new to me and kind of mind blowing, it's a little overwhelming. I guess when you put it in perspective, I probably am closer to an 8 or a 9, but I think I was saying 7 more to my hesitation or my apprehension, right? So I talk them through it. First, I always say, hey, why aren't you a lower number? That's them talking about what they liked about your product or service and why they give you a 7 in this case. And then I always say, okay, so what's missing or what didn't I cover that you feel like you need to be closer to a 9 or a 10 in terms of this solving problem? And have him tell you what he thinks is missing or what's needed. In some cases, it might go just like I did right there. In some cases, they might say, hey, Ray, I'm only a 7 because although you showed me everything, this seems really complicated, and I'm not sure I have the right amount of support and acumen to actually pull this off. Oh, okay. Well, what I forgot to cover here, Joe, is we also run daily workshops that help with this. We run tech support workshops. You have access to one-on-one to my tech support team. We're running media buying workshops. We're running sales workshops, and we give you access and a walkthrough call of exactly how to achieve the objective and the outcome you're looking for using this software. So now that I ran that through and you have all those resources and assets in terms of support, is that going to overcome that? Oh yeah, totally. So a lot of times what I'm saying here, guys, is when I go into the pitch, I never talk about everything we do. It's not really helpful. And usually it gets you talking about like a lot of general stuff rather than I always customize my pitch, as I say, to what's going to solve problem 1 or 2 for this client. I spend a lot of time on that. Then the last minute or 2 of the pitch, I try to gloss over the ancillary things that come with that, but I never talk about everything they get access to or everything we can give them. So a lot of times when I ask them, hey, what's missing? They say something that we actually offer. I just didn't have time to go over explain. And I could just say, oh, we actually give you that. Now, with that being said, Joe, are you close to a 9 or a 10? Oh, yeah, totally. Now I feel a lot more comfortable knowing I have all that support or workshops or resources. So again, that's just a good example of kind of how that works. And again, what I mean by an assumptive sale, if they tell me they're a 9 or a 10 right off the bat, I go right into, all right, Bob, that's great to hear. Hey, man, well, the best part is it's only $2,500 per month to get you started today. Start lowering that cost per lead and acquisition and increasing your ad profitability. That all being said, and you told me 9 out of 10 on wanting to get started, we accept Visa or MasterCard. What works best for you? And I go right into the assumptive sale. You guys would be surprised. I took 100 calls. I did the assumptive sale and I broke down the close, and 12% of them, 12 out of 100, just pulled out their credit card and started reading it off when I did the assumptive sale. What I'm actually expecting to get, and the other approximately, not all, but a majority of the other 88% was somebody giving me an objection then. That's what you're expecting because I didn't even get any objections. I said the pitch, and I don't even say the price until in the assumptive sale. So he didn't even know it was $2,500 a month before I did the assumptive sale. So a lot of times I'll get, well, Ray, do you have lower tiers? Is there a payment plan? Let's talk about the budget, right? And we'll go into a little conversation. I'll still close a lot of those deals. But yeah, 12%, surprisingly not, just read the card off. Hey, MasterCard or Visa, which one works better for you? Hey, Ray, I have a Visa. It's number 4642, and they start reading it to me. That's a great sign, right? That's what you would want to see. But again, if not, you start going through the objections, whatever it is, apprehension, hesitancy. I always say, when it comes down to objections, we kind of always wanted to have it drive toward finances and only overcome that. So, Joe, if I can make it make sense financially, is there any reason we wouldn't get started today on this system, this product, whatever? No, Ray, if you can make it make sense financially, that's really my only thing, right? What are the other objections we might get? I don't trust you. I need to think about it. I got to talk to my spouse. I'm already with another data provider. I've been burned in the past, right? And I actually have a framework and a script, and it's within number 5 on that seller's resources. When you scroll down to the bottom of that document, you're going to see my AAA framework for overcoming objections. You're going to see scripts of me overcoming each one of those objections and what the prospect said and what I said and the exact word track, whether it was spouse, trust, think about it, money, all those are all within that document, guys. And I don't have time to go through the full overcoming objection training today on this call. But yeah, I mean, that's what we're always trying to do is dial it down to there. Now, number 2 on my screen, what does this one mean exactly? People buy good sounding products rather than good products themselves. Should say themselves, not themselves, but either way. What exactly does that mean? So a lot of people think if I create a good product, and go to market, it's going to sell. And that really sounds good, but people buy good sounding products, meaning the words and the copy and the marketing that attract a prospect to look at your product or service, whether you're attracting them through creating, a bit of curiosity, intrigue, whether you're dropping value, whatever your objective, though, to get them interested, it's got to be something that sounds good. So the best example I can give of this, and this isn't my own, I ripped this one off from somebody's software that actually saw this analogy come out of when I asked for a good. This is similar to what I'm going to talk about next in agreement analogies, a little different. I asked for a good example through this AI copywriting software that's a little more advanced than anything like GPT or Grok. It's its own separate software. But anyway, it came back with the analogy of like, hey, you're walking down the street and you're extremely thirsty and you see two lemonade stands. One says fresh squeezed lemonade, the other says yellow sugar water. Which one are you buying? I think we all would probably answer the fresh squeezed lemonade. Now, they're exactly the same product. They probably quench your thirst just the same, but one sounds far better, superior to the other. That's why we're going to buy that. So two people put out a lemonade stand, say, I'm going to put a great product. They both put up a sign. The one that sounds better is going to have all the traffic coming to it and all the people, right? So again, you can have identical products. It's always the person who makes it sound better. The good copy and the good marketing wins in any market. And that's what you're going to notice. Sometimes even vastly superior products make much less success and revenue than much more inferior product because the marketing and the copy is just so much better that it attracts people. I think that's a travesty in the marketplace, but it happens more often than I would like to see or admit maybe. And that's why I love working with people on this stuff, because I can help them kind of make their stuff sound good so they're not getting killed by somebody that's delivering an inferior service or product. That's one of the things I truly believe when I'm helping prospects on a sales call. If I don't enroll them or help them with this problem, more than likely, not always, but more than likely, they're going to go invest or go with somebody that's not going to do as good of a job. And I honestly feel that way when I'm working with people. I'm not just saying that to sound good. I really feel like my product or my service is superior, or them working with me is better than the alternative in most cases, in terms of the amount of the investment and the results they should see. So if I don't help this person, they're probably going to get screwed elsewhere. And that's very, very common. Let's go into the buyer belief system. So one thing we should learn to do, and this is probably the most powerful thing that I've embedded in my sales and that I've really embraced and learned, is to use what are called agreement analogies. There's a great example of a insurance salesman by the name of Ben Feldman. I think he may have done this better than anyone in history. I don't know the exact year. I'll double check, but I want to say by 1979. And again, he sold a lot of insurance in the 60s and 70s. By the end of 1979, he had sold more insurance and written more policies. And he was a small little, I want to say Ohio or Pennsylvania, Midwest guy, door knocking salesman. He had sold more insurance policies and written more premiums than all the big Manhattan and New York City insurance houses. How did he do that? He did that by a lot of in-person engagement and using one very simple analogy. I believe, and again, I might have a word or two off as a quote, so this is a tentative quote, but it was something like, he would go up and talk to somebody. Let's just say he bumped into him in an elevator. He would do this on pretty much everybody, which is another thing that made him successful. He wasn't shy, and he would ask everybody, but he would just talk to somebody, strike up a conversation, and say, hey, Joe, if you had a money printing machine in your basement that could print out money on demand, would you insure it? And they're like, hell yeah, I would insure it. Well, Bob, aren't you that money printing machine for your family? What happens to you if you're no longer producing revenue or income for your family? Right? So just that analogy, I don't know if you guys piece it all together, how strong that is, but that gives the actual person that he's talking to, in this case, a prospect, the ability to go through this whole kind of thing and get an aha moment in their mind. Very seldom have they ever thought of themselves as the money printing machine for their family. But once this analogy's made, they're thinking, oh shit, he's right. Like I am the money creating, money printing machine for my family, right? And they would be like, so why aren't you insured then? And then would you like to hear about premiums? And they pretty much had it in their head. It was very hard to say no at that point. Like, I don't want to insure myself, or I don't want to protect my family. So just by using a simple agreement analogy that let them, make the own rationale in their head that, oh, shoot, this guy's right. I am the money printing machine for my family. I should take care of myself. Hey, have you ever looked at getting life insurance? No, I haven't. How's that work? And they would start to ask buying questions, right? How's that work is a buying question. How's that priced? All those things. So what you really need to do to understand a buyer's belief system in full is number one, you need to understand their existing beliefs, aka what they already know. So you guys might remember from some previous workshops where I go into the customer sophistication level and I say it's very important to know what the customer already knows. By the way, guys, when I did that one, I brought this book, Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz, which again, hard copies of this are well over $1,000 last time I looked and I purchased mine. But I have the e-copy. I offered it to everybody for free that day and we ran short on time. If you just DM me on school and tell me, hey, I'd love Breakthrough Advertising, I'll send you guys all the digital copy individually. Again, I'm not going to go through all the chat here. It's much easier if you just shoot me a DM. I want to say a lot of times, the last one, a few of you guys put, yeah, Ray, send it in the chat. Then when I ended the workshop, I didn't remember who said yes. I didn't have time to jot them all down. And only 2 of you actually DM me that I remember that I sent it to. So again, I just want to open up that promise again. I didn't do that intentionally. If you just DM me, I'm happy to get it to you. But as we talk about there, what is really important? What the customer already knows. And as I said in this slide, and when we went through this whole lesson that day, the most important to ask yourself as a business owner, especially in terms of your marketing, is what does the customer already know? It's very good if we start with what they already know and then we lead them down a path of what they don't know, whether that's going into problems and making them problem aware, whether that's going into solutions, or whether that's going into results and or outcomes. We kind of want to lead them down that path, but you always want to start with what they already know so they can relate and they buy in and they're like, oh shit, yeah, I know about that. And then start talking about things they don't know. And again, I can go over that whole lesson in another time. I'm sure in the future we'll go through prospect awareness and sophistication level again, or you can look back in school, guys. Every single one of these DaaS Sales Workshop recordings, I go post the replay within 2 hours after. So each Tuesday, this ends around 4 p.m. By 6 p.m. Eastern, it's uploaded into school, and all my past ones are in there. So you can also go back and check those out. But understanding the existing belief. So the existing belief in the example I gave with like this guy lowering cost per lead and acquisition is very simple. My cost per acquisition and lead is constantly rising, hence my ads aren't as profitable as they should be. That's the existing belief. So now I need to understand or really lay out the buying belief. And the buying belief is simply like, just to put it in a simple formula, and then I'll tell you this example, but the buying belief is, I need to be able to do this, leave a blank, XYZ, to achieve more profitable ads in this case. So the buying belief is simply, they have the existing belief of their ads aren't profitable enough. They're, rising cost per lead, cost per acquisition. What belief do they need to have an understanding of that they know will solve this problem and lead them to the results? So in this case, hey, the belief is, the understanding, the existing belief is, cost per lead and acquisition are constantly rising and my profitability is dropping and I really don't know how to solve this. Hey, what if I could show you how to embed in-market first-party intent-driven data into your advertising and marketing campaigns to almost immediately lower your cost per lead and acquisition? So they need to understand, in my case, targeting and data and custom audiences. I think the big misbelief with a lot of advertisers, especially around the problem I just talked about, rising cost per lead, cost per acquisition, is their number one go-to to solve that is go hire, or maybe even in-house, but go hire a new creative agency and be constantly spitting out new creative. My ad costs are constantly rising because my ads fatigue and I got to constantly hitting new creative. That's usually not true. Almost in every case, when I just go build somebody an in-market, pre-existing, intent-based winning audience, for lack of a better phrase, and loop that right into their meta ads and run their existing creative or even past creative that performed well, it almost overnight drops their cost per lead and acquisition by anywhere from about 25 to 40%. That, of course, guys, is contingent on building an excellent, proficient audience for that specific client, understanding all the prerequisites and parameters they're looking for, and make sure we build a dialed-in audience. If we build that, we're kind of competent, we build a half-ass audience embedded in that campaigns, we're not going to see those results I just talked about of lowered, cost per lead acquisition from anywhere from about 25 to 40%. They'll probably see the same. They might even see a rise in cost if we built a half-ass audience. That's why we got to be very proficient at audience building, which we have all kinds of trainings for in school, multiple trainings in there. And then the office hours workshops are all geared around that as well. Or hit me up if you need more support with audience building and I'll give you some best suggestions. But yeah, as I talked about with that agreement analogy, it gives the prospect the chance to get that aha moment. And a lot of of times we don't even have to point it out for them. They kind of figure it out for themselves. Whether we have to point it out to them is kind of irrelevant as long as they get it. But I think it's much more powerful when they get it themselves right off the bat. They're like, oh shit, I never looked at it that way. I never thought of it that way. Right. And this ties back into number one, telling isn't selling. We don't want to tell them that you're the money printing machine. We want to ask them and make them think it and say it to themselves. Right. In this case, same thing I was talking about with, using tie downs and then holding people accountable. Now, number 4 on my screen, guys, very, very important. I get this a lot. And when I work with, especially when I work with like people that are either just getting into high ticket sales, they have a background in sales, or, they want to be a professional sales rep. They are under the impression that overcoming objections and really the hard close and how to overcome objections is the, again, most crucial aspect of a sales call. I disagree 100%. I fully believe, and I know for a fact, at least in my sales style, I can't say there's not more than one way to do sales. There's no right or wrong. There's one that feels better and is more natural and genuine, and there's sales that convert better, and there's sales that don't convert as well, right? I always go for what feels better, what vibes, what flows, and what converts better. So again, I'm not going to say you can't do it the other way or that overcoming objections isn't important, but running the discovery phase accurately, well, the way I kind of show you in that framework, that script that I have laid out, doing that properly is the most important aspect and most important phase of a sales call by far, right? So as I say, believe it or not, it's not overcoming objections. It's really the discovery phase. And it really comes down to two other components that I would say are the most important sales skills in what I see that are or develop into A-player reps. And I have a lot of data and a lot of more so people I've worked with that kind of second this notion. But number one, the ability to navigate a sales call as an organic discussion rather than a rigid, structured, scripted format. AKA use a solid framework, not necessarily a script. A script I can hire a monkey to do. A script is going to be the same on every call. Therefore, it's going to be robotic. It's not going to be genuine, authentic. And the prospect is going to feel that no matter how good or how natural you are with your script, the prospect's going to know. You'll be able to know if you go back and look on that seller's doc, number 8, some of my sales calls recording, you're going to tell every one of those is a unique conversation. None of those are similar, and it'll be damn obvious that there was no script used. I'm not even looking at a sales framework or structure. I've done it so much, it's all in my head. I don't have anything up on my screen. I just have a conversation with the person. So they're like, at the end of the call, damn, Ray, this was different than the other sales calls I've been on. I feel like I was just talking with a friend. Good, man. I'm glad. Did you get some value? And do you see how we can solve this problem? Yeah, totally. Is there any reason we shouldn't move forward? No, I don't see why not, Ray. Boom. It's a smooth segue. But a lot of that has to do with relating, rapport, and, just being yourself, right? Which I understand can be hard. I'm not saying day one, the first sales call you take, or the first time you start running through a script or a framework, you're going to be smooth and natural. But through repetitions and through practice, I did this early on when I first started as a high ticket closer before ever running my own companies, just hired by a $20 million annual digital consultancy at the time. What I was doing is practicing my sales framework, my pitch in front of the mirror. I would get with close friends or family and have them role play it with me. So anything just to get more and more comfortable. The mirror worked really well for me because I could, at that point, see my facial reactions, I could pick up my cadences a little better, things like that. Not to say you can't without doing it in the mirror. The only other way I have success doing that is recording my calls and playing them back. And I'll pick up something when I listen to one of my call recordings. Then I'm like, damn, I didn't realize I said that live. Or, oh, shoot, let me tweak that. And I'll find something that I didn't really like. But very rarely we'll notice or we'll be able to catch ourselves like just doing it live on a call. Usually you got to, do practice in front of a mirror or with somebody that's going to give you feedback or utilize call audits. I recommend all of you guys, when you take sales calls, record them, go over them yourselves. I have a great self-audit framework that I can teach you on how to self-audit. I'm happy to look over your calls if you send them to me. And I've only had one session where I've done one of these DaaS Sales Workshop where a client sent me over a call and we spent almost a whole lesson on the call audit and the breakdown. But I'm willing to do that if people send them to me. The problem is most of you guys either don't record your calls or don't send them to me for feedback and coaching. If you do, I'm happy to help and happy to, make it a lesson where it can really help everybody. Number two, the other ability and the kind of soul ability outside of the, being organic and natural and genuine, the number one skill I would say that I recognize again in A player reps as opposed to B and C players is the ability to hold somebody, a prospect, accountable to their own words and challenge them into ultimately making a decision that they come back and thank you for 30, 60, 90 days down the road. So again, I think a lot of us try to be very friendly, professional. All these things are good on sales calls, but we also try to be a little too maybe supportive. I'm not sure if I'm using the right word, but I think a lot of salespeople and a lot of business owners on calls are afraid to challenge people. They'll always pat them on the back. Yeah, Bob, you're doing that good. Yeah, Joe, you're doing that good. I'll challenge them. I'll be like, hey, so you're currently, your close percentage is 15%. Are you happy with that? Do you think your guys can perform better? Why do you think they aren't closing at 20 or 25%? Now, if they closed at 20% as opposed to 20% as opposed to 15, and your guys are closing 6 deals per month, that would lead to an extra $86,000 in annual revenue. Would that help your business if we could get your close percentage up 5%? Right? I'm going to have a conversation and challenge them. I'm not just going to say, good job, you guys are closing at 15%. That's awesome. Keep it up. Everybody should be striving for better. And believe it or not, 15% is not horrible, guys, but it is below industry standard of A player reps. I can get better close percentages for pretty much any business or business owner. So if I see that, I'm going to let him know that we can get better percentages. And as a byproduct of that, would that lead to more revenue into the business? Would that be a good thing, Mr. Business Owner? Very few are going to say no. Ray, it wouldn't be a good thing to drive more revenue into my business, right? So again, and then 5, I covered briefly. I'm going to put it in this document, and I'll throw this document in when I drop the replay later, guys, in the school community. With the replay down in the description, I'll have the link to this document and some other cool resources in case there's anything. Again, this is nothing revolutionary or nothing, nothing elaborate, but you might just want to review these points and the verbiage I have on my screen. So I will include the doc. I'm going to type in and add number 5 to this and give a little description. I talked about it a little earlier, but another big component and a big factor that we have built into our sales lab training, how we operate, is utilizing effective tie downs and temp checks, again, which I already covered. So I will drop that into the document. What I'm going to do now, guys, if you have any questions or any thoughts or anything you want to ask or anything you just want to give me feedback on, hey, Ray, this is helpful, I'm going to implement it, go type a 1 right now in the chat and I will call on you. When I call your name, please feel free to unmute and go ahead. And in the meantime, let me just check the chat and see if there was any. So, Will, all these deals are from guys being brought onto all. So, Will, just so I can be clear, are you talking about back when I was showing in the Slack channel?
Yeah, the very beginning.
Those were all just Audience Lab. Yeah.
Okay.
That's just an Audience Lab Slack channel. My other deals are in other merchants and tracked other places. Those are just Audience Lab clients and pretty much just all new from ads or booked via a nurture or workshop reactivation sequence. Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Excellent. Did you have any other questions?
No, not really.
Cool. Nathan, you found some of this fire at least. Great. Glad to see. Again, hopefully you guys take away something that you can totally implement into there. But what I'm telling you, again, I don't sugarcoat stuff and show you fluff. Like, these are the things that have made a difference in my sales process. Using analogies, understand buyer behaviors, being able to take them down this, what I always call the breadcrumb trail. So they say, hey, what Ray said to me and what we're talking about totally makes sense. I never really heard that or thought of that. Nobody told me that before. Their brain almost automatically jumps to, how do I find out more? And they're going to go through your next training or your next call to action, or maybe even it's an enrollment on that call, whatever the objective is at the end. So those things are all very crucial, and everything I went through, from tie downs to temp checks to, again, challenging people. What I mean by holding people accountable to their words, again, that's the tie down at the end of the call. So let's say I get to the end and I do that assumptive sale, just to give you guys another example since there's no questions. And I'm like, hey, Bob, the best part is it's only $2,500 to get you started today, so you don't have to worry about those rising cost per leads and cost per acquisition, and we can get your ads back to a steady, profitable, revenue stream that you're looking for. So we accept Visa and MasterCard. Which one's best for you? Well, Ray, I'm a little unsure if ready to get started today, or whatever kind of objection they give me there. That's where I'm talking about using tie downs and holding them accountable. Okay, Joe. So you said you want to think about it or talk about it a little. Let me ask you, what in particular are you thinking about? And tie them down to one specific thing, whatever they might say there. Might be something in your demo, might be a case study they didn't see, might be their own kind of their own mental limitations or fears that are stopping them from pulling the trigger, whatever. And then I'm going to tie them back down to, hey, Bob, didn't you just tell me about 10 minutes ago when I was asking you if you had targeted custom audiences like this, you're almost certain you could drop your cost per lead and acquisition? Well, yeah, Ray, I did. And isn't it almost inevitable if we can drop that cost per lead and acquisition, that ad profitability will rise? Yeah, it will. So tell me, Bob, what's there really to think about? What are we thinking about again? And it's very hard for him, again, to go back on his own words and say, oh, yeah, Ray, I don't want to fix this problem. I don't want my ads more profitable. So that's when I'll tie them down to one last question. All right, Bob, so we're on the same page here, right? So let me ask you, is it a priority, as you mentioned at the beginning of the call, to get this problem fixed sooner rather than later? Or is this something you're just going to keep lingering and let your costs keep rising? And then just sit back and shut up, right? I only want to work with people if it's a priority. If they tell me, hey, Ray, I'm going to be passive about it, I'm going to let my ad costs keep rising and maybe we'll revisit this later, fine, let's hop off the call. If you don't want this problem fixed and you're not looking for a solution yesterday, no harm, no foul. There's plenty of other people that are, and on to my next call. That's exactly what it is. That's actually part of my framework, something I do very early on in the call. When we first assess their problem, hey, my problem is rising lead and acquisition, or cost per acquisition, whatever. Hey, is it a priority for you to get this fixed, or is it something you're looking to do down the line? So I'll say that early in the call, and they almost always tell me it's a priority. And then again, at the end, when they're like, hey, I'm not ready to move forward, you told me 20 minutes ago, Bob, at the top of the call, this was a priority for you guys, and you were ready to move on getting this solved. Now you just told me you were 9 out of 10 on finding a solution, and you totally think this can work. So why are we not moving forward? What's stopping us? Let him try to ration it, or he's going to be kind of bumbling over his words, or he'll be like, damn right, you're right. This is a priority. I did say that. I truly do think this is a solution. You're right. We probably should move forward. So those are the kind of questions, nothing abrasive or, confrontational, but challenge what they told you and what they're trying to accomplish and their beliefs. Yes, it's a priority for me. Yes, I'm struggling with this problem. Yes, I see your solution can certainly solve this problem. I'm 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. There's really no reason at the end for them to tell me not to move forward, as long as, again, I can make it make sense financially. So, Alicia, are you finding you need multiple calls to close deals from Facebook ads? Have you tested offer direct to a sign up link start? So great question. I've actually gone over this with quite a few people. Actually, this goes in a little to what you sent me the other day, Will. My answer is going to go a little into that. But number one, what am I finding in terms of the sales process? So in that seller's document that I put in the chat earlier that I cover, I recommend a 2-call process. About 60% of our deals internally, Alicia, coming straight from ads, cold audience, other than whatever the ad warms them up with the education or the VSL within there. On average, 2 calls, a 2-call, 5 business day sales cycle is what we see for about 60% of our deals. So will there be some that go longer than 2 calls and longer than 5 business days? Hell yeah. Will there be some outliers that are just a 1-call close? Heck yeah. Now, more to have you tested and offered direct to sign up links, strike page without a call? Yes, we've tested multiple different offers and price points. And what I've found is, generally speaking, with high ticket products and services, especially something like we have here with Audience Lab, which is categorized in the ad tech category, it's very hard to sell anything for. We really haven't had a lot of success selling anything above $497 just directly through a landing page. No matter how much you can try to educate in a VSL, a landing page, email, a masterclass, where still the decision is made and we can challenge the buyer and really everything comes to fruition is on the actual sales call. So high ticket services, ad tech, that kind of stuff, and again, even outside of data, I've tested this in plenty of different offers outside of data and ad tech. I've really had trouble scaling offers. I've gotten some deals and some conversions, but nowhere near where I would like them or where that number should be in terms of conversion in a automated, just straight, payment link checkout page. I've never had any success above $997 to $1497. So any offer priced above that, I'm never going to try to build it at scale in just an automated sales process. I'm pretty much always going to send it to a sales call. $997 and less, I can test. $997 or less, I can test, and it may or may not work. Again, depending on how good the copy is, the niche, the industry, how much brand recognition. There's a lot of little nuances and intricacies that play into that being effective. But generally speaking, once you get above $997, very few people are going to pull out their credit card and enter it in for $1,000 or more, even more so if it's recurring monthly without actually speaking to an individual. So that's what I found over and over again. Makes sense. I would have a hard time spending. Yeah, exactly. And it's something, again, that's why I specified in ad tech, it's even more difficult to pull off and accomplish because it's kind of intricate, complicated solutions. Unless you have a very, very high sophistication level that knows the power of the software and knows exactly how to use it and implement it right away, that's the only way someone would ever pull the trigger on that. And guys, those people are few and far between. They really are, for who we're attracting. I mean, unless you're really hitting that higher sophistication level, you're working with only Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies. Maybe you could pull it off. Again, there's subtleties and nuances that can lead to this being or not being successful. But again, through a lot of testing, a lot of different offers, and building a lot of different sales teams, once it goes above 997, I wouldn't try to build an automated system. Nathan,
For sure. Thanks, Ray.
Yeah, you're quite welcome, Alicia. Nathan, quick question before I got to run.
Yes, so essentially
Excuse me.
running a discovery call and a closing call with all the people that are interested in your ad tech product would be the most efficient way to generate a bunch of sales from this, correct?
100%. I'll still tell you with Audience Lab, on average, we book about 300 calls per month. Every single one goes to a sales call. The only one of you guys on this call in our whole school community, the only ones that ever bought a product, and most of these still went to a sales call, but the only ones that ever bought a product without a sales call bought the 497 incubator. So we do make certain sales of our 497 just through automated, but that's the only product anybody will or can buy and that we've had any success with. And even a majority of those go to a sales call, and that ends up the downsell just because they weren't a fit for one of our higher tiers.
Gotcha. And I was just onboarded last week, so I'm making my way through all the sales documents, kind of putting the whole thing together. And then, as I mentioned, I have a team of 5, and usually the model I was running before at the previous industry I was selling was a setter-closer model where 4 setters and I was the main closer. So as I'm kind of putting everything together and going through all the documents, would that be a good strategy to run here as well?
Say one more time. I'm sorry.
So I have a team of 5 in general. That I like. So my team, we're all coming together from solar, right? We were all working solar. I talked to you last week.
Yep.
We're still very interested in selling some sort of new product, right? We obviously use Audience Lab in our own personal operation, but now we want to flip it to where we're just fully on board, like selling ad tech, selling this product in general.
Correct.
I mean, we're still piecing it together, right? But just from what I'm hearing from you, ideally, to do volume, doing a setter closer model with 4 setters and me as the closer, that would, obviously scream volume to that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if I were you, to be honest, if you're going to do the closing, I would start with 2 setters. I doubt you'll need more than that. Think about it. My setters, especially if they were just doing the triage call, the 15 to 20-minute call, would take anywhere from 8 to 16 calls a day. If you just have 2 of them, you're already allowing for 16 to 32 bookings per day. It's highly doubtful you'll go above that right off the bat. So if I were you, I would look at starting with 2 setters.
Gotcha. And then obviously I know you got to get going, so I won't take too much of your time. Putting together kind of like that funnel and stuff is something that I would like to, need help with or something, kind of get a good eye on that, just because.
Yeah, totally. A lot of that's covered in the sales resources. So when you go through all that stuff, a lot of that whole funnel, especially the funnel portion of your sales process being built out, is all covered in there. So again, go through that in a little more depth. Nobody's going to go through that and have that all ironed out in a day or two. Like, there's a lot of information in there.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you need any help, just reach out to me and I'll help you setting that stuff up or answer any more specific questions you may have.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Eduardo, you had another question. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Raymond, quick question. How can we communicate with you? What's the best way to reach you? Is that school?
Yeah, DM me in school. That's probably where I'm most active. Email, I'm very transparent with you guys. Emails sometimes get looked over. I don't check those quite as frequently. School, I'm in my DMs at least 5 times a day.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'll write you there.
Perfect. All right, guys, great. I got to run. I got another session coming up with my sales team here in 1 minute. Give me a couple hours. Within school, I'll have this replay uploaded there if anybody wants to go back through, and I'll have some extra resources in that document I covered with some of those high-level strategies included right in that. So thanks, guys. We'll catch you next week, and appreciate your questions and your interaction here today. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for your time, Raymond.
Thanks, Ray.
Welcome. Bye-bye, guys.
Cheers, everyone.